Don't forget my channels will be splitting on the 1st of January, so if you want to see any sort of F1 or racing content, make sure to subscribe to FNG Racing. A link to the channel will be in the description below. As I said, videos will start there in January and I would really appreciate it if you subscribed. Hope you go on to enjoy the video. Hello there guys and welcome, it is Niran here, and today it is time for me to bring you round number 16 of our F1 2015 career mode here with Carlos Sainz Jr. And that brings us today to the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. And of course in real life this is a track that is somewhat under threat from being axed from the F1 calendar. I personally love it. In previous series we've seen some incredible races with some incredible results in both qualifying and in the race itself, but it's time to move on and see what Carlos Sainz can do around the twisty track that is the Circuit of the Americas. Last time out, of course, we were in Sochi, and what a race that was. I won't spoil it for you, a link will be in the description below, but it was an incredible race. Before we get to see whether today's race can match it, let's have a look at the qualifying report. The major story of Q1 was the manner of Will Stevens making it into Q2 in 15th. The grid was very mixed up due to cold conditions, which saw Pastor Maldonado way down in 19th and both McLarens out the first hurdle again. The second session would be topped by Nico Rosberg from his teammate Lewis Hamilton. More heroics from Stevens saw him take 11th due to grid penalties from Felipe Massa and Carlos Sainz. They would start 14th and 15th respectively. And to complete a day of surprises, it will be Daniel Kvyat who would take an astonishing pole position, thriving under the cold track temperatures. Lewis Hamilton was second from Nico Rosberg in third, whilst Romain Grosjean took a fantastic 6th place. So reading from 10th upwards, it's Max Verstappen and Marcus Ericsson on row 5 with Bottas and Ricciardo on row 4. Romain Grosjean took a solid 6th from Vettel in 5th with Raikkonen and Rosberg on row 2, but it was Daniel Kvyat who would take his first ever pole from Lewis Hamilton. So quite an astonishing qualifying session. Grid penalties left, right and centre for myself, for Felipe Massa as well in terms of engine changes. And yeah, end up with Will Stevens in the Manor in 11th and Daniel Kvyat on pole in the Red Bull. Quite astonishing where he pulled that one out from. I have absolutely no idea, but it's going to make this race so much more entertaining because people are going to be filtering through the order back to where they should be, which is obviously, hopefully, going to promote a large amount of overtaking, as is the race strategy. As you can see, a 3-stop strategy for today, 2 option pit stops, and then a prime pit stop on lap 18 or 19 is what we're looking at. So it's time for Sainz to yet again recover from a poor qualifying. As you can see, Felipe Massa in the Williams only 13th, so a really poor qualifying for him, but we are underway. Nasa there to our left, Perez getting a good start and trying to lunge up the inside and doing so. Will Stevens falling back already in that manner. It's the first time I think we've seen a Toro Rosso with a Manor in front of it in this entire series. Going around the outside though of Felipe Massa and then around the outside of Will Stevens going through turn 2. So we've gained a net position. We've lost out to Perez, but we've gained positions on Will Stevens and on Felipe Massa. Battles going on in front there between Nico Hülkenberg and the other Toro Rosso there of Max Verstappen. Sainz thinking of a move up the inside of the Mexican Sergio Perez in that Force India, going through this tight and, well, not tight and twisty, sort of snake-like left and right section. It's interesting. It's a bit like the Beckett's, no, that's not it. Beckett's and Maggot's section of Silverstone, and it doesn't really give you many opportunities to overtake, but it's a lovely section nonetheless. As you can see, talking of overtaking, Sainz got a much better run than Sergio Perez in that Force India coming out of turn whatever the hell it is, turn 9 potentially, and onto the back straight, and it's allowing him to lunge up the inside here. Massa's making a move on Max Verstappen as well. Now obviously Sainz and Massa are battling in the championship, and with Massa getting such a poor qualifying, way down in 13th place, this is potentially an opportunity for Carlos Sainz to gain those points back that he lost on the Brazilian in Sochi in Russia last time out. He's got to start, however, by obviously passing Felipe Massa and then getting into the points. But before he gets to Felipe Massa, he's got to pass his teammate Max Verstappen, and he does that onto the penultimate corner on lap 2, and through he goes up into 12th place as Sebastian Vettel sets the fastest lap of the race. This has been a pretty poor start, it has to be said, for Daniel Kvyat already. He is dropping down the order like an absolute stone, I can tell you. I think he's about 5th at this point in the race, which is slightly disappointing because of the fact that, you know, he's an underdog and got pole, but he was never really going to take the win. Meanwhile, Romain Grosjean and Marcus Ericsson are going at it here, going through sector 1 of the lap, and it's backed up absolutely everyone. Grosjean the cork in the bottle. Ericsson's gone past him, and it's slowed down Massa to the point where Sainz has lunged up the inside, hung out the Brazilian out to dry, and Max Verstappen has managed to get through as well and up into 12th place, so double trouble for Felipe Massa. He's lost that to both of the Toro Rossos. Next up, Romain Grosjean, who is showing absolutely lacklustre pace in this Lotus. Don't know what is going on for the Frenchman, but he started 6th and he's now down to 10th because Carlos Sainz goes up the inside down into turn 1. He's now got Verstappen, Massa, Nasser, everyone is behind him. Sergio Perez is in there as well, so it's not looking fantastic for Romain Grosjean. On to lap 6, and a few cars are in the pit lane. That has promoted the majority of the field up 2 positions, so Sainz goes from 9th place up into 7th place. In the next lap, he is pitting from 7th place, right behind Marcus Ericsson in the Sauber. What a race he is having. A decent qualifying, managed to get into the top 10. Couldn't feature in my qualifying report because so much happened in the qualifying report, but it was a great qualifying from himself, and he's having a good race as well so far, picking his way up the order and up in 6th place at the time of the pit stops. As you can see there a moment ago, Felipe Massa was actually getting held up by Pastor Maldonado and I do believe a McLaren as well. So that's helped Sainz get away from Massa, and Sainz has also managed to leapfrog Marcus Ericsson there in the pit lane. So really good job from the Toro Rosso guys. Disappointing from the Williams guys because they had to let one of the McLarens and also Pastor Maldonado through. On to the next lap though. Sainz is back up into 9th place because people are pitting. Yellow flags actually out. That's because Sergio Perez, don't know if you can see him, just in front of Daniel Kvyat, has actually spun. And this is what happened. As you can see, we've got someone coming out of the pit lane there. I think that's Valtteri Bottas. We've got Rosberg picking his way up the inside of Perez, and 3 into 1 just simply does not go. Bird's eye view there from the other Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton. Bottas making contact there with Nico Rosberg, spinning himself and then spearing into Sergio Perez. As you can see, Perez, having not pitted yet, is holding up Daniel Kvyat. He now peels into the pit lane as Carlos Sainz, the Spaniard, jumps up the inside of Daniel Kvyat through the penultimate corner, and already Kvyat is down to 8th place, and I think will become 8, well no, that'll become... I don't know, well, it's becoming 9th at the moment because Felipe Massa's going up the inside of him down into turn 1. Massive lockup for Carlos Sainz. We've just seen him go miles out wide. And who's the first person to go through is Daniel Kvyat. Somehow, out of all of that, Daniel Kvyat's managed to repass Felipe Massa and then pass Carlos Sainz. Not a clue what happened there, but now Felipe Massa, later on to the same lap, is breezing past Carlos Sainz, going to try and make a move on Daniel Kvyat as well. Doesn't quite do it, then outbrakes himself at the end of the back straight and loses the position again. In the meantime, up in front, Kimi Raikkonen is in the process of retiring. His Ferrari power unit has given up the ghost on him. From 2nd place, Vettel was up in the lead. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what is going on pace-wise in this entire race weekend, but for some reason Ferrari were dominating. Raikkonen is out of 2nd place, and Carlos Sainz is doing his best to make sure he joins him in the pit lane there with a massive lockup, almost spearing into the side pod of Daniel Kvyat. Thankfully, they all get away with it somehow. Daniel Kvyat does come away in 6th place somehow. Obviously, he's been promoted up 1 position with Kimi Raikkonen retiring from the race. Nico Hülkenberg and Felipe Massa are sitting like prey, or predators even, right behind the prey that is Carlos Sainz, who's just about to sweep through our screen there. Daniel Kvyat doing a very good job to avoid the little brother car that is Carlos Sainz that was just, I don't even know what happened. Massive outbraking and lockup there from Carlos Sainz. Now we're going 3 abreast because Felipe Massa is taking matters into his own hands now, and he's lunged up the inside of Carlos Sainz, trying to recover from such a poor qualifying, as is Carlos Sainz, and Daniel Kvyat is just disappointed after such a good qualifying. Real contrasts here being shown by Sainz and Massa on somewhat of a recovery, and Kvyat just falling through the order like it's nobody's business. Sainz does manage to hold on to that 6th place, gaining a net 1 position on Daniel Kvyat, but Felipe Massa, in that slippery car in a straight line that is the Williams, has breezed past Sainz without really any issues whatsoever. Same for the Force India of Nico Hülkenberg behind. He's gone past Daniel Kvyat, and now we jump into the pit lane for the 2nd pit stop of the afternoon. Can the Toro Rosso boys perform miracles yet again? Can they once more perform a pit stop that sees the Spaniard actually leapfrog whoever he was battling with, and it looks as if that is going to be the case, because Massa once again has been held, this time for Romain Grosjean, I do believe it is, in the Lotus, and again for a McLaren. So Sainz has managed to leapfrog the guy he followed into the pit lane once again. This time it's Massa as opposed to Marcus Ericsson. Massa coming out of the pit lane down into turn 1. He's being met by a Lotus, and he's being met by a spin because he's been spun round after hitting the Lotus there. Romain Grosjean, it was actually Pastor Maldonado who came into the pit lane, but disaster there for Massa. He's been jumped by Sainz, and now he's spun on exit of the pit lane. Now moving on to the next lap there, and Sainz was sort of jumping quite a lot of people who were coming in for their second pit stops of the afternoon. Perez has not made his second pit stop of the afternoon. That has not, however, stopped Sainz making a fairly audacious move up the inside towards the end of the lap with about 4 corners to go. Lovely little move up the inside there through that double apex left-hander onto the next lap, and we move up into 6th place as someone else comes into the pit lane. Meanwhile, the two McLarens are battling. We all know how this turned out in Sochi, and not very well, and again it has not turned out very well because Alonso has made contact with Button. He's lost his front wing as he hits the Armco barrier. Button has escaped without any damage there, and Sergio Perez managing to just sort of sift his way through the middle of both of them as they were laying stricken in the middle of the road. So not going well for the two McLarens, jumping all the way to lap 19 now. The third stint of the race was not too entertaining as far as Carlos Sainz was concerned, with Massa being taken out of proceedings. It wasn't really, it wasn't too exciting, but as you can see, we're now coming in for our third and final pit stop of the day to stick on a set of prime tyres, and Grosjean and someone else came into the pit lane as well behind on lap 19. Coming out of the pit lane, nothing doing in terms of an accident, as was the case with Felipe Massa, but Sergio Perez just about getting around the outside there of Romain Grosjean, and now coming through the rest of Sector 1. Sainz has filtered out into P11, but as the temperature of the tyres has not quite got up to speed, Sergio Perez has actually managed to get to the back end of Carlos Sainz later on in the lap, down the back straight, and has actually jumped him there for 11th place. So the Force India there going past Carlos Sainz and up into what at the time was 11th place. A few people coming into the pit lane, including Daniel Kvyat, who's now filtered out in front of Sergio Perez, and Carlos Sainz is now up into 9th place. Sergio Perez, the meat in the sandwich between Kvyat and Sainz. He's in 8th place currently, and Kvyat is occupying 7th place. Perez actually trying to make a move at the inside there of Daniel Kvyat for P7. He's going to come in at the end of this lap, and Sainz trying to get around the outside there of the Mexican driver, but he's got it all wrong, and now Romain Grosjean is trying to capitalise on that in the Lotus. He's managed to find some pace from somewhere after a pretty shocking first stint pace-wise, and as you can see, he's hanging around the outside there, trying to make a move up the inside, going through this flowing right-hander there, and Sainz just about getting round the outside as Grosjean was threatening to understeer into the side of the Spaniard. Perez now comes into the pit lane, and it's sort of opened up somewhat of a gap now between Carlos Sainz and Daniel Kvyat as a few more cars come into the pit lane in front of all of them. And that means that Sainz has a bit of a job on now in terms of catching Daniel Kvyat. He's also got the immediate threat of Romain Grosjean behind him in that Mercedes power unit equipped Lotus. Nevertheless, onto lap 24, about 4 laps later, it took Sainz quite a lot of time to catch up to the Russian Kvyat, and he's managed to do so and now lunge up the inside onto lap 24 into turn 1 and for 6th place. But as you can see, Kvyat getting a much better run out of turn 1, getting very close going through turn 2, almost wheel banging there, but in the end Sainz does just about hold on to 6th place in front of Daniel Kvyat, who's now down in 7th place. On to the next lap, and Kvyat is not giving up on this P6. He's got Romain Grosjean for company as well in the Lotus just behind. Bit of a gap then back to the other Toro Rosso of Max Verstappen. Then it's Nasser in 10th and Massa trying to recover again after his spin earlier. He's down in 11th place, and Sainz will be hoping he stays there because that means that Sainz could gain all the points back that he lost from Sochi. Meanwhile, Romain Grosjean and Daniel Kvyat are attacking the back end of this Toro Rosso, left, right, and in fact centre. Moving on now into lap 26. Down into this left-hander, this very tight left-hander. Sainz got it all wrong. He's locked up. He's gone wide. And that means that Daniel Kvyat is going to have an incredible run on the Spaniard down the back straight with just 2.5 laps to go. He's going to have the DRS as well. In fact, everyone's going to have DRS. It's like some sort of DRS party. Everyone's getting it. Max Verstappen's joined in with the fun as well. Grosjean trying to go round the outside. He's not going to manage that, but Daniel Kvyat's got the inside there of Carlos Sainz, and Max Verstappen makes a small amount of contact with the Lotus driver Romain Grosjean. He now occupies P8. This is a good result for him as things stand. Onto the penultimate lap of the race, and Sainz is eyeing up another manoeuvre on Daniel Kvyat, and he lunges up the inside down into turn 1, a bit of a dive bomb, but Kvyat certainly not expecting that one, and Sainz moves back up into P6. And what a race this is turning into so far. So the final lap of the race is shaping like a brilliant battle as well for the lead. Nico Rosberg lunging up the inside here of Sebastian Vettel down into turn 1. Vettel's been leading all afternoon. He's had the better of the Mercedes, had the measure over the Silver Arrows, but onto the final lap of the race, down through turn 1, and Nico Rosberg has got up the inside of Sebastian Vettel to surely take the win, and Daniel Kvyat is plotting a late move as well on Carlos Sainz, and he's made it stick there as the Spaniard makes a mistake through the penultimate corner on the penultimate lap. Now moving on to the final lap of the race, and Daniel Kvyat gets DRS as well because he was behind going through the activation zone, and this now spells all sorts of trouble for Carlos Sainz. He's got Romain Grosjean as well behind him trying to DRS his way around the outside through turn 1. Verstappen's there, Nasser and Massa have joined the party as well, just in case there wasn't enough action in this battle for 6th place. But Daniel Kvyat now is in that 6th place. Sainz has got to make sure he doesn't let him get away, because if he does, he's not going to have a chance in what will be his final chance of overtaking, which will be down the back straight. He's not going to have any sort of other opportunity. Nico Rosberg has won the race, meanwhile, after a stunning last lap move on Sebastian Vettel, his fellow compatriot, to win the race and take what will be 10 points out of his teammate Lewis Hamilton in the championship. As you can see, Sainz is right up the backside here of his bigger brother sort of teammate Daniel Kvyat in the Red Bull. The Toro Rosso going to try and use the slipstream and the DRS. Surely he's going to have the pace advantage to move up the inside of Daniel Kvyat, and he does so down towards the end of the back straight. Then he's not actually outbroke Kvyat, that's what I was trying to say, outbroke Daniel Kvyat there, but he does manage to hold on up the inside in the end on this final lap of the race, and surely now will take 6th place, as long as he doesn't make another mistake like he did on the penultimate lap, because that's obviously what cost him the position in the first place. So as long as he gets through that penultimate corner and the final corner a-okay like usual, and not like the last lap, he should be okay. Daniel Kvyat's just there. It looks as if Felipe Massa as well has managed to break the heart of his almost namesake Felipe Massa in the Sauber, because he's managed to steal the final points paying position off the Sauber driver, meaning that Nasser will actually finish 11th place for the 2nd race in a row. But thankfully, Carlos Sainz does not have to settle for his 7th place, because he managed to take 6th place off Daniel Kvyat. Let's not forget he was the pole sitter as well going into the race, managing to take that 6th place off Daniel Kvyat on the final lap of the race. And in Parc Ferme, he looks pretty damn happy with himself. As you can see here is the classification, the confirmed classification. Nico Rosberg winning the race on the final lap from Sebastian Vettel. Lewis Hamilton ending up down in 3rd place from 2nd on the grid. Bit of a lackluster race for himself, but still on the podium, not too bad. Valtteri Bottas there up in 4th place, having a very lonely race in the end actually, despite that spin earlier on. Daniel Ricciardo there in 5th, Sainz taking Kvyat on the final lap of the race, with Grosjean in 8th, Verstappen in 9th, and Felipe Massa taking the final points paying position off Felipe Massa on the final lap of the race. Nico Hülkenberg and Marcus Ericsson unfortunately not getting any points. Not entirely sure how. Marcus Ericsson was up in 6th at one point in the race, and Nico Hülkenberg was up battling with Sainz, Kvyat and Massa at one stage in the race, so not entirely sure what happened to both of those guys. But nevertheless, here is the driver standings in the background, and here is how the race at the Circuit of the Americas actually affected the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship. The result still sees Lewis Hamilton at the top of the standings, but his lead has actually been drastically cut now by Nico Rosberg, who's in 2nd place. Sebastian Vettel has actually managed to jump his Ferrari teammate Kimi Raikkonen after the Iceman unfortunately failed to finish the race. Valtteri Bottas closing in on 5th place man Daniel Ricciardo as well. Sainz now in front of Felipe Massa by just 1 point in the battle for 7th place after gaining those points back that he lost from Sochi. Max Verstappen up in 9th place after scoring 2 points. Nasser and Kvyat are now joint in 10th place after the Russian managed to score 6 points in today's race. Down into the bottom 10, and Jenson Button is there in 12th. From Romain Grosjean, who scored a good solid 4 points, he jumps in front of 2 people now, Nico Hülkenberg and Fernando Alonso, who both slipped to 14th and 15th respectively. Then it's Ericsson, Maldonado, Perez, Merry and Stevens. Stevens, who will be very happy with his qualifying session, but unfortunately was unable to score any points. Moving on to the Constructors' Championship now, Mercedes are well out clear. They probably won it already on 522 points. From Ferrari there in 2nd, Williams in 3rd, Red Bull, Toro Rosso and McLaren still 4th, 5th and 6th. Sauber there still in 7th, but after the 4 points gained by Romain Grosjean in today's race, Lotus have actually managed to leapfrog Force India into 8th place in the standings, with Manor still down there in 10th. But nevertheless, I hope you have enjoyed today's episode of Carlos Sainz Career Mode. Has been a very interesting race, much like the one in Sochi. It was, well, lots of battling, lots of overtaking, much like the race in Russia. If you did enjoy, feel free to smash the likes button. Sort of like 60 likes would be mad. That would be epic. The support you guys have been showing this series has been fantastic, despite the game really dying quite some time ago. But subscribe if you're new around here as well. Again, subscribe to FNG Racing as well, which will be in the description. That's where you'll be able to find this series from January the 1st onwards, and comment about enjoying the video if you enjoyed it that much. But nevertheless, it's been a pleasure ranting at you guys today. Have a good day, enjoy yourselves, and goodbye.